Here with us now is Caitlin Conant, CBS News political director. It's so close to CBN, and David Brody, CBN News chief political analyst. Thank you both for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
Caitlin, the Biden campaign just announced 2 days ago that former Vice President Joe Biden was still for the Hyde Amendment, a position that he's held for decades. Is this him bowing to the new norm as it relates to the base's narrowing view on abortion and women's rights?
So I think this is what happens in primaries, and it's clear that Joe Biden really wants this race to be about him and President Trump. But at the same time, he can't ignore what his opponents are doing and saying. So he responded to attacks over the past 24 hours, and I think on top of that, it's important to note that until 2016, there was broad bipartisan consensus for this in the Democratic Party. In 2016, they chose to repeal it as part of the party's platform. So many of his opponents have voted for this amendment in the past as well.
David, is there room in the Democratic Party today for people who are pro-life? We saw just this week pro-life Democrat Dan Lipinski at the SBA gala, and almost immediately after showing up there, people like Bernie Sanders and others within his party pulled their support from him.
Yeah, so here's some analysis for you guys. No, there's no room in the Democrat Party, but look at the numbers, right? I mean, in the 90s, you had at least 40-plus Democrats that were pro-life. You could find a pro-life Democrat if you lined a few up in Washington. Now, good luck, Dan Lipinski and just maybe one or two others in the House. So, no, there are no rooms. I think, though, with the Biden situation here, this is bad for Joe Biden on a couple different fronts. First of all, if he makes it to the general election, you can be sure that Donald Trump and the campaign has written down this week in history to make sure this comes back and bites him later on in the campaign if it's between Trump and Biden, because Trump will go into rural Ohio, Pennsylvania, and other places and say, hello, cultural Democrat, look what Joe Biden did to you. And then in the primaries, Booker and Klobuchar and Sanders and everybody can say and look at Biden and say, hey, he switched on this. It's an authenticity issue. What's the next issue he's going to switch on? So I think he gets it twice here.
Moving on to tariffs, David, the president seems optimistic, saying there's a good chance that the United States and Mexico can reach an agreement on this. On a certain level, can the president claim victory, getting the Mexican government to concede that it can do more with a border crisis?
Well, let me just say something very clear. Oh, he's going to claim victory. I don't think there's any question about it. But I think that was the game all along. He knew the wiggle room was in the middle. He knew Mexico would do something. The question is what exactly, and I think we're now in the what phase. And once the what is decided, he will claim victory and say, look, I threatened the tariff, they did something, and there you go, mission accomplished. Now, whether or not it's actually going to stem the flow of migration coming from Mexico and, of course, Guatemala and other countries remains to be seen. But I think that's the play, at least politically, for Trump.
Caitlin, in the meantime, we've seen fallout among Republicans in the party having to do with these tariffs.
Exactly. And this weekend, a bunch of the Democrats will be in Iowa over the course of the weekend. And today, Beto O'Rourke was there. And he said that this is going to be really bad for Iowa farmers. And so it's Republicans as well, as you pointed out. In March, Joni Ernst told me and a group of reporters that she thought if the president didn't make a deal on tariffs quickly, he could lose his support with Iowa farmers. So we're waiting to see on if his base holds with him on this issue.
You know, to your point earlier, Caitlin, about Joe Biden and really running against President Trump, despite being in this primary with 20-plus other Democrats, how do you see this strategy playing out for him?
Well, Joe Biden definitely wants to make this about him and President Trump, as I mentioned earlier. And on day one of his announcement, he had a video where he went straight to him, and he wants to bypass the primary. This weekend, all the candidates are going to be in Iowa except for Joe Biden. Yeah. He'll be going on Tuesday when President Trump is in the state. But as we saw with what happened with the Hyde Amendment, he can't ignore his opponents. So I think a good indication of how he will handle attacks and who of the opponents will actually attack him directly will come at the first Democratic debate in a few weeks.
I don't think we can end the segment without at least addressing a topic that many people are talking about, which are Trump's tweets on the way back from his European trip about the Mars and Moon. Is he just sleep deprived here? What's going on? Caitlin, we'll start with you.
Oh, Caitlin, ladies first.
Exactly. So to give them benefit of the doubt, I think here the Trump administration has given far more resources to NASA. It's been led by Pence. They want to have private investment with the likes of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. And I think part of NASA's plan was to get to the moon first and then go to Mars. So I think the president really cares about making sure that if we do get to Mars, if anyone gets to Mars, that it's American footprints first.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And also, I think the key line in the tweet is for all of the money we are spending, because with Trump, it's all about money, right? What are we getting? Bang for the buck, and how are we presenting it? And there's the tweet there. So he says, for all the money we're spending. So his point is, and he didn't, from a syntax standpoint, say it all that well, but he's saying that, look, let's talk about Mars. All right, the moon too, that was the parentheses part. But let's deal with Mars first and forget about the moon for a while, even though it's part of the package. Okay, so 7th grade grammar kind of throw out the window. But the point is, he's like, you get the point, you get the point.
That's right.
Yeah, all right. David and Caitlin, thank you both so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.